Hey guys, today I'm here with the Lange Originals Hoist-A-Cart fitting all 2018 and newer JL Wranglers. So taking off your hardtop and storing it can be difficult. It's almost impossible to do it yourself, and they are heavy and awkward to carry. Now this Hoist-A-Cart by Lange Originals is going to be a solution to all of those problems, making this a one-man operation to lift the hardtop off of your Wrangler, lower it down onto the cart, and store it wherever you want it to be stored. What I personally like about this in comparison to some other choices on the page is that this is not going to require a garage in order to take the top off your Wrangler. This is simply a cart made of a heavy-duty steel construction that's going to allow you to do that all by yourself, and it's going to stay mobile and pretty flexible. Now this is also going to have a heavy-duty steel cable and pulley system, as well as other rubber coatings, foam, and felt coatings to make sure that your top is staying in mint condition when it's sitting on the cart. Now with all of that being said, this is going to be roughly $600, making this one of your more expensive solutions as far as hardtop removal and storage goes. Now in my personal opinion, I think that that is right on the money considering with all of the things that this brings to the table. Almost all other options on the page will usually require a garage or a large ceiling in order to take the hardtop off your Wrangler, and it's not really recommended to store them while in the air. With this system, it's mobile, it's versatile, and it makes it a one-man operation where you don't need a garage. Now in comparison to other choices, like I said, those are going to be a little bit more budget friendly, but they are going to be confined to that garage. So if you are looking for a manual or powered option, even by Lange Originals, then those are going to save you a little bit on cash. But if you don't have a garage or you just simply want something that's going to be made of high quality materials, that's trustworthy, and it's going to be compact and versatile, then this is going to be right up your alley. Now install is actually going to be pretty easy at a 1 out of 3 wrenches on the difficulty meter, no specialty tools involved, just a couple basic hand tools and probably 2 hours worth of your time. So speaking of that install, let's jump into that now. The tools that I used for my install were an impact wrench, a Phillips head screwdriver, a 3-inch extension, a T45 torque socket, a 7mm, 13mm, 14mm, and 19mm deep socket, a 1/4-inch drive ratchet, a 7mm open-ended wrench, a 14mm ratcheting wrench, a 14mm open-ended wrench, a 5/8-inch low-profile wrench, a pair of side cutters or snips, and a tape measure. So our first step is going to be to build our base of our Hoist-A-Cart. You want to lay everything out. Everything is going to be labeled, and I'm going to walk you through that in just a second. You want to make sure that you have your caster wheels as well as your hardware laid out, and we're going to go ahead and start up at the front. So we're going to start in the middle up at the front with our 2 middle crossbars. Those are not going to be labeled, but as you can tell, they will have mounting locations that are going to line up with our crossbar 3 as well as our crossbar 29. So we can lay those over. Once our crossbars are in place, we can take our bolt labeled number 24 and put that through the bottom and secure it down with the nut on top labeled number 15. Just to make sure that this stays in place, we're going to thread the nut on. We're not going to tighten anything down just yet. We want to get our number 3 crossbar installed as well. Now once that's in place, we can unthread the 2 nuts on the back and install our plate. Then we can attach the provided nylon lock nuts, labeled number 15 again. And then we can move down to the bottoms of these middle crossbars. Then we can take bar number 4, making sure that the welded attachment is facing out, and attach it to the 2 mounting locations at the bottom of our crossbars. We can secure them down with the same hardware that we did at the top. going to be bolt number 24 and nut number 15. Now we can attach our sides. Taking our side crossbar, we can slide it into our frame, and we can secure the front 2 mounting locations with bolt number 17 and nut 15. So our back mounting location is going to be secured by our caster wheel. This is the one that's going to spin. The ones that are going to be stationary are going to go up front on our arms in just a minute, but we are going to mount this up just like we did with the other bolts, and then secure it down with the provided nut. Then we can repeat that on the other side. So what we can do is tighten everything down. All of the bolts besides the casters are going to be using a 14mm socket and wrench. What we can do is tighten down our caster. I'm going to be using a 19mm deep socket and a thin wall 5/8 inch wrench to hold the caster still. After the caster is tightened, we can pop this cap over the nut to make sure that it's secured. Then we can do the same thing on the other side. Now we can take leg number 6 on the left side, making sure that the spring clip is facing the outside. We can attach our wheel. Now again, this is going to be the stationary wheel. It is going to come with a provided nut. And we can tighten that down with the same 19mm socket and 5/8 inch low profile wrench. Then we can do the same thing for the other side. Once these are installed, what we can do is slide this into our base. Same for the other side. Next, we can install our foot. This is going to support the middle of our base here when there is load from our hardtop on our cart. So making sure that the bottom stopper is off, we're going to thread this into this welded part on the outside here. Once that's threaded through, what we can do is put our bottom part on and thread in our set screw. Take a Phillips head screwdriver, tighten that up. Then we can take our crossbar, thread the handle off, thread it back on once it's through, and this is going to help us adjust it. So when you're taking your hardtop off and you need to support the middle of the cart, you can tighten this all the way down. And then once you need to move your cart, you can unthread it to move it out of the way. Now we can take support beam number 9 and place that on our plate, making sure that the welded nuts are facing the outside towards you when you're mounting it up. That's where we're going to attach our cable. And then we can secure it down with bolt number 14 and nut number 15. We can tighten those up with a 14mm socket and wrench. So now that we've assembled our base, we can start to assemble the top of our hoist-A-Cart that is going to be holding our hardtop. Now we are going to have 2 junction plates here. I took the bolts labeled number 19 and already installed them on the back of our junction plate. Then I also took the spring clip labeled number 18 and put that up at the front. Then we can grab our support beam at number 12 and put that down into place in the mounting locations. It's a little bit easier when this is laying on the ground, just to make sure that everything's assembled correctly instead of doing it while it's mounted up on the Hoist-A-Cart already. Then we can do the same with the support beam number 13. And to hold that in place, we're just going to put this clip down on over. And then we can install our pulleys. So each pulley is going to have a clip that is supplied with it. That's going to separate the pulleys and allow the cable to go through here and be contained. So on the top of our junction plate, we're going to double up pulleys. Then we can add the other side and secure all of the bolts down with the nylon lock nut labeled number 15. Before we tighten anything down, we can go ahead and install our 2 pulleys towards the front. So next we can move to our middle mounting location for our first pulley. So I'm gonna take the bolt labeled number 14, put that on through. Then we can mount up our pulley with our clip on the outside or the right side if you are facing the Hoist-A-Cart head on. We can secure that down with the nylon lock nut labeled number 15. And we can do the same thing for the front mounting location or the front pulley. So what we can do now is tighten all of our hardware down. For our pulleys, we want to make sure that they are tight enough that our hardware and the pulley is staying in place as well as the clip, but the pulley is still able to spin. I'm going to be using a 14mm wrench and socket. What we can do next is take our number 14 bolts and our number 15 nylon lock nut. These are going to be the last 2 in the kit, and secure them down in the middle of our main support arm. We can tighten those up with a 14mm socket and wrench. So the reason why this spring clip is here is so that we can take this out and make it a little bit more compact. This is going to help out at the beginning when we are attaching this to our main Hoist-A-Cart, and it's also going to help out with being more compact when you're looking to store it. Now we can attach this to our main support beam, and on the 3rd mounting location down, we can grab our 2nd spring clip and run that through. What we can do next is mount up our pulley on our main support beam using the bolt 22 as well as the washer 23. Once the pulley is all the way hand threaded, what we can do is tighten it down with a 14mm ratcheting wrench. So to make it a little bit easier to run our wire, what I'm going to do is actually take the spring clip out and lower this down and rest it on our bolt down here. That will make it a little bit more accessible to run that wire through our pulley, and then we can actually take this clip and put it up at the top to make sure that our Hoist-A-Cart is extended. What I'm going to do now is clip our zip ties off, and then we can unwind this and run our wire through the pulley. So I'm just going to take that 19mm socket, and we can start to unwind our wire. So once we have enough lead, what we can do is run the left shorter wire through the left pulley and the right longer wire through the right pulley. You also want to kind of keep some weight on this cable or keep some load on it just because it will tend to unravel. What we can do now is take our left short wire and put that through our first pulley. Then we can take our right long wire, make sure that that is not caught up in the first pulley, and run it to the last pulley down at the end. What we can do now is thread on our weight, our clamps, and our hook onto the front line. So I'm going to put the weight on first. Then we can add both of our clamps. We don't actually have to take the two nuts off of the bottom there. Then we can take our hook, thread that on. So once we have those four things on, what we want to do is loop this around and thread this back through our clamp and pull our clamps down. Now we want to make sure that there's about 10 inches of line here for a 2-door. That's going to be our starting point. If you have a 4-door, you want to make sure that you have about 12 inches of line. That's going to be our starting point. After we have that 12 inches of line and our clamps moved down, we can tighten down the clamps with a 7mm socket. Now we can move back to our rear line. Next, we can repeat that same process with the rear line, starting with our weight, then our clamps, and then we can take our attachment for the rear. This is going to be the window hook, so this is going to go in the back of our rear glass and hold up the back of our hardtop. I'll show you guys that in just a second, but we are going to thread that through as well. Now for this line, we'll only need about 2.5 inches. And again, that will be a starting point. So if the top is not level when you are taking it off your Jeep, you can go back and adjust. Again, we can tighten that up with a 7mm socket. So our next step is going to be over at the Jeep. We're going to start disassembling our hardtop and installing the elevator bolts that are going to allow us to lift the top off of our Wrangler. So first we're going to start with our freedom panels. So now that we're inside the Jeep, we can just unhook our clamps. After your freedom panels are unattached, we can take them off the Jeep and put them to the side. Now we're going to go ahead and take off the bolts that are holding in our hardtop. You're going to need a T45 socket for this. There's going to be 3 on the inside on either side and 2 up at the front. Then we can do the same thing on the other side. While we're in our cargo area, you want to make sure that you disconnect your wiring harness and the hose for your washer fluid. You don't want that holding on when you are taking off your top, so all you have to do is just pinch that. There is actually a clip right here where you can secure it down, pull back that red tab, and then disconnect it. All right, now we can head up to the front. So up on top, you are going to have another T45 Torx bolt as well as on the other side. So we can take that same socket and remove that. Same thing on the other side. What we can do next is install our elevator bolts, considering that our top is fully disconnected. So the bolt that you'll have is flat. You're also going to get a washer that's going to go on top of the hardtop fastener. Then you're going to have a nut to keep it in place and a wing nut to secure our strap down that we're going to secure in just a minute. So what we're gonna do is actually lift up our hardtop and secure this in the middle because we have a 2-door. Now, if you are working with a 4-door, you're gonna want to secure the elevator bolt up at the front fastener here. So we can unscrew our hardware, lift up our top, and secure it at the middle fastener. Because it is a little bit difficult to see, it may be easier to grab a friend to help you lift up the hardtop, or you could wedge something inside of the hardtop to keep it in place. Now once it's in place, what we can do is take our washer, put that down on through, and then take our provided nut and thread that in. So you want to make sure that the hardtop is completely level at this point and sitting flush with the body of the Jeep. Make sure that this gets tightened down correctly. We can take a 13mm socket and tighten that up. Now we can repeat that process on the other side. Next, we can place our strap on top of our hardtop. We want to make sure that this hook is center in the middle of our hardtop to make sure that it's level when we're taking it off our Jeep. We're going to have little grommets down at the end of each strap that are going to go onto the elevator bolt, and then we are going to secure these down on the elevator bolt with the wing nut. Now this is also going to be adjustable because you will have a little belt and loop system right here. So we can fling this over to the other side and make sure it's even. So you can use the middle ridge on your hardtop as a reference point. It's going to try to make that even with the bolts on either side. And then we can hook this underneath our hardtop. So what we can do is just lift up our top and send this strap through. We'll adjust it in just a minute. We just want to make sure that it's inside the cab. Then we can do that for the other side. Then we can insert the strap onto our elevator bolt and secure it down with the provided wing nut. We can do that on the other side. So as you can tell, this strap is a little bit sideways. What we're gonna do is just readjust it and make sure that the strap is tightened, and then we can lift the top off our Wrangler. So next, before we actually take the top off, lower it down onto our cart and store our hardtop, we wanna make sure that we install this foam block right here on the bottom of our base. This is not just for packaging. Don't throw this out. This is actually going to support and cushion our hardtop sitting on our cart. So there is a piece of adhesive on the back. Just gonna peel that off. Place this in the middle here. Then we can hook up our hardtop. So this part of the clamp for the back is a little too wide to fit between our glass and our hardtop. Obviously, we don't want to damage our hardtop, so what we're going to do is take the rear clamp or the rear hook here and put it up under through the glass. Then we're going to lower the glass, clamp it shut, and tighten it down to our cable there. So this should hook on the bottom and stay pretty flush. You want to make sure that it is even and in the middle. You can kind of line it up with the wiper there. So once that's shut, you'll be able to hook this on and tighten this down. Then we can hook our front hook onto our strap. Next, we can hook our hook onto the strap. And then we can start to lift our hardtop off our Wrangler. What we can do next is attach our handle, so we can take that nut off of where it was on our cable pulley. And then we can thread it back on with the handle in place and tighten it down with that 19mm socket. I am going to be using a 3-inch extension to crank the slack out of the cable, but once it is taut, then we can go ahead and hand crank it. I would like to mention before we go ahead and lift this off that the top support arm, or the arm going over the Jeep, should be at least 17 inches above the hardtop. That's going to allow enough cable to lift the hardtop off the Wrangler and clear the tailgate as well as the spare tire. We did have to move ours up 1 notch, but now we're ready to crank the pulley and take our hardtop off. Now that our top is off of our Wrangler and I've closed up the tailgate, what we can do is lower this down onto our cart, and then we can flip it up so we can store it. So once you start to reach the bottom, there are 2 tabs here that are going to hold the back or the sides of our hardtop. You want to make sure that you're not putting it on the rear glass, you are putting it on the actual part of the hardtop. So we kind of want to guide that into place. Those 2 foam pads there will protect the hardtop surface. What we can do now is disconnect our hook on the front as well as the back. We can leave our strap installed for when we go ahead and put it back on our Wrangler, so you don't necessarily have to take that off. We can do the same thing here, just be mindful when you open up the rear glass. This is not going to be attached to anything, so you want to make sure you have a grip on the top. So what we want to do at this point is tighten up our cables. I took the handle off just to make it a little bit easier to tighten up. So I'm going to use that 19mm socket. I still have the extension on here, but we're just going to wind up our cable. Now, in order to make this compact and to store it out of the way, what we're going to do is pull those pins and lower this part down and lower this top arm in towards the main support bar. Now you want to be careful of the hooks and the weights. They will stay in the track. But now we can move down to the bottom and make this a little bit shorter. What we can do now is take our back hook out. And then lower our glass back down. Next, making sure that the casters on both sides of the back end of the cart are locked, what we can do is flip our hardtop up into place. And it should rest on that piece of foam. What we can do now is make this a little bit more compact. There is a spring clip on this side. We're going to push that in and then push our leg back. Same thing for the other side. So that's going to wrap it up for my review and install. Make sure you like and subscribe, and for more videos and products like this, always keep it right here at ExtremeTerrain.com.